Ladies and gentlemen, welcome once again to the Duuuval Dive. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game of Fans First Sports Network.
And I'm Travis Holmes with BigCatCountry.com.
We're doing this thing for you on the Believe Podcast Network. Travis, we're inching ever closer to week one, but we got to get through these grab bag things, man. And listen, I know there was no football per se in the preseason. Obviously, I had some college football to pass the time. I noticed Travis D. Holmes here was wearing his UCF polo. Make sure you check out the black and gold banneret, as I had a response to their opening performance in the Making the Grade and also the Night Shift podcast, where we live responded to all that for you UCF fans out there. But speaking of fans, Travis, I know we have our regulars, and I give shout outs to all the Duval Divers fans. I'm sure we'll give them plenty of love here throughout the episode. But Radius in particular, who is one of our international fans, putting it on the line here. I should be making risotto, but I'll delay the tea for this and risk the wrath of the business. Radius, you do so at your own risk, but we are honored and joyed that you would go to that length to remain here and be a Duval Diver live today. We appreciate you, Radius. So, and of course, I see Greg Cross in the comments there with him. And obviously they got the talking Gophers because, Radius is in the comments. So, but hey, this is what you Duval Divers do, and we're grateful for it. And I wanted to shout it out. But speaking of Duval Divers and how they help us on the show and make this a great show, Travis D. Holmes, the opening of the grab bag once again here as we get closer to the regular season. There are more questions, and the aforementioned Radius coming out the gate with this banger of a question here. It's got a little bit of verbiage to it. Read it out here real quick. Prior to the Tim Patrick trade, but last week, right? The Jags post cut down 53 was 56.6 guys they drafted, 7.5% UDFAs they'd picked up, and they call it 36% guys they'd signed from other teams as free agents. Being the lion's share are dudes that stayed in their tank, right? How typical is that compared to the rest of the league? And what, if anything, does this say about them? Travis, I would ask this question. Oof. I don't think the correct question is, how is it in compared to the rest of the league? Because if you're the Browns and the Raiders, who gives a damn? Okay. From where I sit, the question is, how close is this to a Chiefs or I don't even want to use the Bengals because they're kind of an anomaly right now. The Ravens, or on the NFC side, right? The Niners, the Packers, the Lions, right? And what's your take on how similar the Jags have become to teams like that?
All right. This is interesting. So we kind of have the answer from the guys over at Over the Cap. They gave us a little bit of they point us in the right direction there. And so the guys are Over the Cap. I know you probably can't read it, but definitely check out the article. It's the 2024 NFL roster turnover article on Over the Cap, where they point us in a little bit of the right direction, where you have the you have the Colts leading the league as far as the most stable roster, as far as the least amount of turnover, with 81% of their roster being turned over. That's the one point of it. But if you want to get into a different kind of conversation, which is what Radius is more so talking about, as far as like how much of your roster being homegrown. Now, they didn't give us that information in that article, but they did give us the information in a previous one when they discussed something basically similar. How much of their roster is turned over from previous seasons? How much of that is kind of homegrown? So in Radius's question originally, it showed that the Jaguars were 63%, which is guys who were either drafted by the team or guys who were guys who were drafted by the team or guys who were either picked up as like an undrafted free agent, essentially. And on the Over the Cap article for the 2023 season, they again had the Colts being one of the teams at the top of the league. It's like who don't do very much free agency, which it was just under 80% at 79%, and the Jaguars were, interestingly, in the 2023 season, which is again under Doug Peterson, were at 63%. So we're talking literally less than 1% difference. The Jaguars now versus the Jaguars then, as far as homegrown talent, is just what type of talent is there. And I thought that was really interesting. So I'm like, wait a minute. So that means that Oh, well, then I guess that makes total sense. Got rid of Christian Kirk, but then he wasn't drafted by the Jaguars. He wasn't an undrafted free agent. So they got rid of Evan Ingram, but he wasn't an undrafted free agent. He wasn't, and they brought in more guys who were free agents when like De'Ami Brown. They brought in guys, to fill those roles again who aren't drafted by the Jaguars, aren't undrafted from the Jaguars. So the roster is different, but it's not built up, naturally by the draft, the undrafted free agents, because they've only had one draft to do it. We're comparing year 3 of the Doug Peterson tenure compared to year 1, month 4, I guess, of the Gladstone tenure. So that makes it a little bit different when that's the floor for these guys, and that was like the ceiling for Balky and Doug Peterson. Makes sense?
So, yeah, and everything you say there is accurate. What I'm forced to inject in here is that this is what's scary about numbers. Everything you're saying is completely accurate. This being Bulky in this time versus Coen coming in out the gate. The Jags were the highest among teams retaining players, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. But here's where the numbers are lying to you a little bit, Travis, right?
Okay.
Part of the reason why the numbers are this high for Doug Peterson is because he and Bulky, after 3 said, nah, we're good, held pat, and thought they could do something extra, and then didn't, right? Now, granted, how much of that is related to Trevor Lawrence's injury situation, how much of that is O-line injury, et cetera, that's a separate conversation.
Right.
But there being an era of running it back with only minimal touch-up improvement. Granted, I'm not calling Cam Little nor BTJ touch-ups, but, improvement on the roster, which got 4 games, right? Whereas there was a whole butt ton of turnover with Liam Coen, and I would remind the crowd at large that the homegrown talent is also being counted, technically speaking, by fresh draftees, your Jack Kaisers, your Travis Hunters, your Wyatt Milams, your Jonah Monheims, your LaQuint Allens, your Bhayshul Tutens. Oh my God, the list goes on and on of guys we know that are going to be significant contributors probably, and we haven't even gotten to the Strigos and Greens there on the other side. I probably said his name wrong, but you know what I'm talking about.
So let me do a favor. Let me name to you the top 5 teams in the NFL, and at least in the middle of the 2023 season for homegrown talent. The Dallas Cowboys were at 80% homegrown. The Rams, interestingly enough, at 79% was second in the league. The Buccaneers, the Ravens, the Packers, all at 71%. Those are your top 5 teams in the NFL. And what does all 5 of those teams have in common? Stability. They're all, for the most part, stable in the front office. They're all, for the most part, stable as far as the scheme, as far as the coaching, etc. Like, even the Cowboys are the worst, but you can't lie. Jerry Jones is good at drafting. He's just bad at all the other. Like, he's good at drafting as far as that piece is concerned, and they still had the same offensive scheme. You know what I mean? Like, he's wild in these streets on the podcast, and the free agency and valuation of trades and all of this other stuff. But hey, on roster construction, they are homegrown to a core, and all the top 5 teams are all in that boat. And if you want to name this, the Packers are the worst one in that group. So I just think it's interesting that the Jaguars were at and are still at 63%, which is basically like the lower half of the league, or the lower quarter of the league, on that list. But nevertheless, again, that's the Jaguars' floor. I think you're going to be in a good situation because, again, the Jaguars are aiming to be that Rams light situation where they are a draft and develop team. They've said it. The Rams say it all the time. That's Sean McVay's and Les Snead's creed. And that's what the Jaguars want to become, as a team that is able to build this thing through the draft. They just only had one so far. So that's kind of where we are.
Well, and let me ask you this. I'm assuming you have the list in front of you and you're mentioning the top 5s. What I would ask, are the Lions and Chiefs among the top 10?
Oh, the Chiefs are 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, literally 10th. The Chiefs are 10th.
I'm just calling the ball, okay?
But weirdly, the Lions are the Chiefs are 10th, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17, 18, 19th.
That low,
below the Jaguars. So they've picked up a lot of guys through trades and you know what I mean? So, like, that's the other piece of it. So they seem to have maybe needed more trades, maybe early on in their build, because they, a lot like the Jaguars, needed that floor to be raised quickly. If you remember the early first 2 years of the Lions, like maybe it's something along those lines. But nevertheless, the Jaguars weren't in a dire situation, because while Trent Baalke may have been bad at roster construction, he still was able to hit on some picks, and we want to make sure we acknowledge that fact. Like Brian Thomas Jr. exists.
Right. Yeah. Brian Thomas Jr. exists. Anton Harrison, I count that as a hit for now. Cam Little, of course, should be absolutely counted. But here's the thing that I think we're really picking out too, right? And you making that helping me understand that the Lions were that low, that kind of blows my mind. But I'm reminded they built a lot through trades, something Baalke was not particularly aggressive on. Whereas F them picks Jimmy Stone's in the building has a little bit different outlook on it. And I think that's the change we're talking about. So you could either build it through stability, like the Chiefs kind of are. And then the whole
there's no one way. Yeah, there's no one way to build this thing, man. Like, just win. Like, in the immortal words of the former Raiders GM, hey man, just win, baby. Like, it don't matter how you do it. It don't even matter if you cheat. The Cowboys and the Saints taught us that. The Patriots definitely did. Just win. However it occurs.
Baby, win. All I do is win. No, so all that, and there is something quickly in the comments I need to address. And Radius said, I went full nerd. My bad. Sir, you never apologize for going full nerd. According to Robert Downey Jr., there may be other things you should apologize going full with. Nerd is not among them. I'll leave it at that. I don't want to use controversial terms.
So while we got you guys here, I mean, we're just getting this bad boy started, but we want to make sure we give a quick shout out to some of our MVPs, our Duval devout MVPs, our Duval dive devouts, in
our
Radius.
Devouts? Wow,
that's it. Radius, shout out, dude. Like, that's our community spotlight for the month. I mean, just been killing it in the chats, killing it on the YouTube comments, on the socials, etc. Like PJ Brown, Timmy Devil, Hef, Dub Season, Duval Paul, Nasir Premier, Zach Schultz, Storm the Desert, and Sliver 64209 on YouTube. I'm not even sure his actual name, but shout out to you.
But shout out to him anyway. Dang it, that's right. By the way, PJ's so tight. He's got grab bag stuff that we're not even going to do today because it's that good. We're going to do it later on.
We'll do it on Wednesday.
It'll be wrapped up in part of our prediction episodes there. How's that for a teaser? So,
I mean, right on it. But like Raphael, you must be in our green room. You must know exactly what we're talking about beforehand, because you was asking about the new contract for Etienne and Trevon. Interestingly enough, that is one of the questions that we are here to talk about, because Ryan Beam asked us the same thing for this week's grab bag. Any noise at all on Trevon getting a deal done, or should we expect that to be shelved till March? That's an interesting question. Remember, Zenith RX, remember when Baalke wouldn't secure edge depth, and now we are swimming in edge depth with Strigo and Green. Oh man. All fair points. So as far as Trevon Walker conversations are concerned, like, we knew earlier in the offseason that the staff acknowledged that there were conversations that at least took place. That we also know that Trevon Walker's 5th year option was picked up, so he's under contract throughout the 2026 season. So there's nothing that's forcing them to kind of get that done. But with Micah Parsons' huge contract, obviously this was on everyone's mind. What do I think about a new contract for Trevon? I mean, I think it feels like it's pretty obvious, like it needs to happen. Hopefully sooner than later. But nevertheless, because you have that extension, that 5th year option, the contract, just similar to Trevor Lawrence's contract, wouldn't kick in until after that 5th year option has taken place in the 2026 season. So they got time. But fortunately, you don't have Baalke in the building. Mr. Baalke, I don't do contracts in season generally unless I'm about to get fired. Baalke. That was always very interesting. So nevertheless, you have that on the table, and there's no rule in the sand that they just can't get it done in the season. Like, this doesn't have to be done immediately.
Greg mentions a point too, going back to the franchise thing. Ozzie Newsome with the Ravens, obviously a big deal. I mean, he's a dude that is in the Hall of Fame, not just for his life previous to a front office man, but being a front office man as well.
Right.
So all that too. Ravens are the standard for 20 years. 1, fit a system. 2, draft the best player. Sure, obviously. But and again, everybody, there's so many different ways to get there and skin the proverbial cat. But at day's end, there's not just one way to get there. But Greg Cross mentions that the Ravens have been getting there for quite some time, and that's
also true.
completely accurate. Yeah.
No, so in reference to an Etienne contract, I don't know how that happens. I'm not saying it's impossible to happen. I'm not that crazy enough, but I'm just saying as far as Etienne, he's obviously different than Walker. Walker, they picked up that 5th-year extension. They obviously want him to be in-house. Etienne, I don't know that is the case. It could be the case. It may not be the case, but also there's an equal opportunity where this thing could land where Etienne has played wonderful these first 3 weeks of the season, and someone makes a phone call and says, "Hey man, I'll offer you a 3rd-round pick for him," and they're just like, "Yep, all right, cool, bye." I don't know how that's gonna land because Bhayshul Tuten exists, Hines-Allen exists, Tank Bigsby exists on rookie contracts. That makes it very difficult, man.
And I think you're hitting on it. Some team out there inevitably is going to value Etienne more than the Jags do currently. It's simply a supply and demand piece. The Jags have more supply, so they demand Etienne's services less, which means another team will demand more. Then the Jags would inevitably think that he's worth in his mind. And at the end of the day, this conversation is something we really should table till week 8. I think he's a target for a trade deadline movement, whether there's injury and kind of like, I forget what year it was. I think it was 2 years ago that they brought in Ezra Cleveland when they had a lot of O-line injuries.
Right.
Did that sort of thing last year where they moved Cam Robinson to the Vikings because they had injury issues. I think this is when that can will open back up with Etienne. So it's not that we aren't answering the question. It's just there's a to be continued element to it in play here. And we've cited this on other episodes of the Duuuval Dive that we believe that possibility is strong with this particular one for sure. By the way, I listen. And I want to bring up this really quickly too, because there's going to be more bulky references. Normally, I'd go, listen, Duval divers, Duval devout in general, y'all need to get over that X, okay? However, the reason why in this instance I'm okay with the fact that we reference it is celebrating that Shad Khan has turned over a new leaf, has started to embrace change, and after all the years and years and years of pain in being in relationships with GMs that just didn't necessarily go the right way, specifically bulky of late, right? Rather than staying loyal to a partner that was about to drag you down again in the form of a 3rd coach hiring, right? Yeah, this is trouble you didn't need, okay? So I like that we keep referencing bulky to celebrate that this is a new direction for the train. Yeah, exactly.
Yep. Tony Basella makes that happen.
I love that point. We don't talk enough about the Hall of Famer and his role in the front office, mostly because he's overshadowed by Jimmy Stones and what Liam Coen are doing, which all 3 of them have done a bang-up job in the offseason. I know we've touched on that. But I say all that to transition to this question, if you're ready for it there, Travis. Let me push the button. There you go. Does Bulky get another chance at being in the front office again? Timmy Devil with the question there. What do I got to tell you? I think we're pretty. I'm uniquely biased in answering this question, so I'm going to say what I think and throw it with a grain of salt. Only a madman would see enough evidence for this to seem like a good idea. Okay, and by the way, he's called Littlefinger, right? Lysa Arryn, who is crazy in the Game of Thrones show, was the one that hired him back to her front office, and she died because of it. That is all I'm saying, Travis Oves. Winter is coming.
And I still say he's going to get another front office job. He's brought too many people in the league, man. And that's the part that folks will never acknowledge the good part of Trent Baalke. Like he may be good in certain areas. Like he's reasonably fine at drafting linebackers, which is why he normally stays drafting linebackers and only linebackers. Like it's just a weird thing where he has his areas as a personnel man that he's actually like reasonably solid in seasons, I guess in spurts. So if he's a guy who you bring in just to have a different voice in the room, it might be all right. It's just when you put him in that leadership position that it may be problematic. So like Dave Caldwell got another position. Dave Caldwell brought Trent Baalke in. Like in the NFL circle is such a close knit group of individuals who just talk to each other. And while Trent Baalke has had a history, or at least a seemingly public history of not working well with people, there are multiple individuals who he has brought in who actually works well with. For even the guy for the goodness gracious for the San Francisco 49ers, Williams, I forget his first name, the personnel guy who Jaguars brought in to interview this past offseason. Trent Baalke brought him in. You know what I mean? Like Trent Baalke brought Ethan Waugh into the league. Like there's so many of these guys who are around the league that Trent Baalke was the actual person to bring in that I just have so many doubts that he wouldn't get another opportunity as a personnel guy in some capacity eventually.
Yeah, and the being difficult to work with thing isn't always enough to deter somebody, right? May I reference the great Tom Coughlin? Not exactly famously the biggest teddy bear in the room at any particular time. Still came into the Jags, had a pretty decent run for his involvement there while he was there. I don't know that he was the GM per se, but, there was success under his tenure. Perhaps the most that the Jags had in a single season. I don't know what it was beyond that, but there's something about going a direction where someone is capable of staying within their welcome and not overstaying their welcome, or even worse, being known for cajoling and conniving actions within the front office to where you're compared to Peter Baelish. I'm just saying.
It may not be a good organization, but it's going to be one of two things. Mm-hmm. It's going to be either a great organization that brings him in, like, Dave Caldwell being brought in, I believe it was a Philadelphia Eagles as a personnel guy, or it's going to be a terrible organization who is just at a loss on what to do. I mean, that's how Trent Baalke was brought into the Jaguars in the first place under Dave Caldwell, because they didn't know what they were doing. They were just bringing in a guy who they thought had, championship pedigree, despite the other areas of, opportunities as far as that piece is concerned, working with guys. So it's going to be one of those two. It's going to be some incredible team or some team that is just in dire straits, like the Cleveland Browns. And they're just like, we just got to figure something out. Please help us. Those are probably the two main options, but you won't see an average team that's like doing well, like, I don't know, the Colts, a middle tier team that's going to be desperate enough to bring Trent Baalke in. It's going to be one or the other, strong organization or a terrible one.
I like your point there too, and Greg Cross kind of echoes it. Baalke would improve some teams, ETL, like, right. So like if he goes to like a really bad, unstable organization, he has enough to pull them out of the basement. But in my purview, he does not have enough to take them to the top. So if you look at the hiring of Trent Baalke as a patchwork, let's lift you out of the abyss kind of thing, that makes sense. He's not going to be like Larry Brown of the 76ers who got Allen Iverson to the finals and had Ben Wallace and that group in Detroit win a championship in the NBA. He's not going to turn your franchise completely around, but he's going to move you in a correct direction. And then hopefully, much like Jimmy Stones is doing here in Jacksonville, the stuff that he does that keeps him from reaching that height can be undone with relative ease, right? And
sure.
Yeah, Greg Bill's on the Atlanta example, spends 2-3 firsts at offensive line, edge, and Walker. Pierce won't be starting. Ouch. That's
that's a Baalkeism, unfortunately.
I can't go there exactly. Yeah, that's a point made. But right, I think for those franchises that are stuck in kindergarten and can't do 1 + 1 = 2, Trent Baalke could get him at least to middle school, air quotes, right?
That's cool. Yeah, I got you. So let's keep this bad one moving on. Hodari on X asked the Duuuval Dive, who do you think will be the inactives for game day? I have my 5, and I would like to see if they match your thinking. So that's a hard one, as you can probably guess. Just because I mean, you have guys like Strigo and BJ Green, who you have to presume the team only kept on the roster because they wanted those guys to be able to develop and not get snatched up on the waivers because of their production in the preseason.
Right.
But you have to ask the question, with those six defensive ends on the roster, on the 53-man roster, I just don't know how they would dress all of those guys on game day. Like, you have your 5 inactive, so I'm wondering if both of those guys would end up being inactive on game day, or if they want to just rotate those guys throughout the season. I could also see a life, where that exists also. So I'm probably going to lean with both of those guys most Sundays being inactive. From that point on,
I'm kind of surprised you didn't lead with any DB talk on this. And granted, I haven't checked who's being considered for the PUP or who isn't yet, but you would have to think Ransaw and Buster would be in the conversation if they're not named to the PUP, right?
Well, because they haven't been put onto the PUP and they haven't been put on IR as far as Buster or Ransaw has been put on IR. I'm sorry, his season.
Oh, has he? Okay,
right. Ransaw's on IR, so his season's already done. So that's a wrap. He's not counted in that 53.
Correct.
But that's the kind of why I wouldn't start with the DB room. The fact that they didn't put Montero Brown on IR, I have to presume he's going to be healthy. I have to presume he's going to be practicing if he hasn't already practiced this week. We'll find out on Monday when I talk to the coach and find out.
Right, but if he's week to week, he could be inactive in week 1 as well too. So that's on the table.
True. And then whoever they move up would then just end up being someone else who's also inactive also. So that's fine. But overall, so I'm wondering, maybe Montero Brown is someone who's going to be a healthy scratch just in that week 1, since he was week to week a few weeks ago when we last got that update. And we'll kind of be able to figure it out from that point on. So that's already 3 guys that we're looking at this point. Then you have maybe someone like a Darnell Savage I could see being inactive until they have an injury in the safety room. That would end up being my 4th guy. At that point, we were pretty much just talking about maybe one more person. Like, I don't know who that 5th person with in week 1 of the season.
Lineman, yeah.
Tim Patrick. No, I'm thinking Tim Patrick. He just got into the office. He's going to learn he's going to take a few weeks to learn the playbook. Like, I think just in the first 2 to 3 weeks of the season, I wouldn't be shocked to see a Tim Patrick being a healthy scratch just to get him ramped up. Like, they may have time to get him a package or 2, something like that. But yeah, I think it's going to really need some time in this Sean McVay offense to kind of learn it just from that perspective. I mean, we've seen how many false starts, how many penalties, how many pre-snap penalties we've had in this training camp with guys just trying to learn the offense. We know that was an issue with the Vikings trying to learn the similar offense under Kevin O'Connell. We know that was an issue with Tampa Bay Buccaneers. We've talked about that, showing you guys the proof from their training camps in previous podcasts here. So it's a complicated offense to learn. It may take him a few weeks. I can see Tim Patrick being that 5th guy, just not active for those first few weeks of the season. But do you have anybody who's different?
I'm about to say, in that fascinating piece, you have not brought up running backs yet. I don't think you think they're dressing all 4. So I think there's another direction that could happen.
There's another option. And that's why it's like, I don't know, because Johnny Osher of the Jaguars.com, he believes that the Jaguars will address all 4 running backs early in the season. And I'm like, I mean, I can see that too, because you want to, if you don't know at this point whether or not Travis Etienne is going to be on the roster late in the season and you want to showcase him, but you still want to get your rookies some snaps, which these guys do believe in. Like, we've seen that. They believe it to a fault. They will get these rookie snaps. Well, you have Hines-Allen and Bhayshul Tuten, who are rookie running backs, who they will need to get just 5 snaps, 10 snaps, whatever it is a game. Maybe you do want those guys to be on the roster. Like, I'm not going to disagree with Osher. I just know that the coach also said it's going to be very difficult to get 4 backs dressed on game day. So I'm questioning how that's going to work out.
Right, but the question being posed is, hey, we can't afford the roster spot, which obviously math is a thing. I get it. But by the same token, if we've already said it on this show, how can you afford not to dress Hines-Allen when he's, using your words, Travis, easily your best pass protector? And that's what makes this conversation so compelling. Yeah, it's going to be hard to do. The only thing that might be harder, Travis, is keeping all 4 off.
I mean, you're not wrong. It's just real funny to me how I could see it landing both ways, and I wouldn't be shocked in either case. And that's just where I'm kind of at.
Absolutely. Yeah.
But if I have to pick, if you have to pick, which one of these guys are inactive? I would hate the words coming out of my mouth to have to be that Bhayshul Tuten would be inactive, but that's kind of how I feel.
Oh my, isn't that nuts? That's
and
insane.
it stinks.
Well, and true, if the play is that you're having take return punts and you're kind of taking, this is going to sound so petty, and I don't mean it like this, but if you're taking the Tyson Campbell defense in that, you're assuming at some point, because playing running back is hard and he has a history of missing games, you're assuming at some point Travis Etienne's going to get dinged up, and it's only inevitable that you take Tuten in. I can see that thought process, and it makes more sense than keeping your best pass protecting running back off the roster. So, yeah, man, at the very least, punt return him. You know, the excuse he's a special teamer, not a running back. He just has an RB next to his name, right?
Cool.
Think Jamal Agnew, right? I think they dress all four too. You've helped convince me actually by pure accident.
Dang. All right. Well, those two red shirted quote unquote defensive ends kind of helped the math a little bit. Make the fact that they made that hard decision on Daniel Thomas, and they made those hard decisions on a few of those guys who I would have assumed would have been part of that active 48, makes this decision a little bit easier right now. So I think we are in the general.
Are you referencing your Chad Muma standing?
Oh, man, don't get on me about this chat movement stuff. I told you I was not bold enough. Obviously, that was the issue.
Yeah.
We'll see if it works, man. I don't know.
I wasn't bold enough either to believe in Dewan Smoot. We all have our flaws, bro. It's okay.
But nah, man, y'all just y'all just missed on that one. That's not a bold take. I got you. We've seen it from Smoot at least, but
now,
right, so I think. Well, I mean, 2022. I just bet on history. That's all. Okay. So we have our 5 guys. So I believe our 5 guys are BJ Green, at least for week 1.
Yeah.
BJ Green, Danny Strigo, Monteric Brown for week 1, unless we found out his injury situation is like where he's truly day-to-day or even healthy at that point.
Right.
Like I know he's been, on the field at least as far as that's concerned, but I don't think he's been practicing as full or anything along those lines. So again, those 2 defensive edges, Monteric Brown. We have I believe Tim Patrick being the 4th guy, and I forget who I said was the 5th person. Just that quickly, but
Savage.
Yeah, and Darnell Savage. Yes, again, I think if the safety room is healthy going into the week, Darnell Savage is going to be your 5th guy, your healthy scratch. While they continue seeing whether or not they need him because he doesn't play special teams, and whether or not maybe can even work out a trade as far as
it will not be Raywan Lane. I know that
it would not be. It would not be his special teams. He's taking that DT role, that Daniel Thomas role. So I think it will not be.
Or that Chad Muma role. With one of them, one of your core fours.
I'm so down with y'all. Kaiser took the Chad Muma role. Well, I got you. And he's also a pretty, he's a better backup than Chad Muma was. So nevertheless, we are good with that one. Unless you have anything else you want to hop on to the next one. Next question. Or hop into the chat.
I'm going to make the one point. It's not that I'm making fun of you about Muma. It's more actually accenting a point you made where all the stuff that felt like hard decisions suddenly didn't feel like hard decisions once they were done. And I think that's a fascinating point you make. Like, why were we stressing over this? It makes sense, Anyways, but yeah. What we got?
Man, that's what it is. And oh gosh, Radius, Lord, from the top rope. All right, cool. They got a garbage can to play the Chad Muma role. Oh wow. That's wrong, but
you know what?
Kind of right.
Now that they came out with that, you gotta show the thing.
He's a hater. Yeah, Radius is a hater. He's a hater from the UK. I didn't even know y'all had hate like that, but I got you. That's why y'all so miserable over there. I understand. I'm with you, bro.
It's called hate, mate.
Ed Helinsky says, on X on Twitter, what if anything surprised you about who got cut? Which is also an interesting question. And we talked about this already on the original podcast after the 53-man roster was announced. But again, they then made a few additional cuts after that. And I just thought this is a good time for a victory lap because I said there was 5 guys on the roster who I wouldn't be shocked if they were on the roster, but I also wouldn't be shocked if they got cut because they were veterans who were either in 1-year deals or in the last year of their multi-year contract. So it was Fred Johnson. Well, Fred got traded like days after that podcast aired.
That was my answer then. It still is now, but go ahead. Yeah.
You got Daniel Thomas. Well, Daniel Thomas was released the day before they had to. You got Austin Trammell, who got released also after the fact. He was actually on the initial 53, then later got released with the Tim Patrick pickup. And he also then was re-signed onto the Jaguars practice squad. So he's now still in-house. And then I also named, Colin Saunders and Dennis Gardeck. And Dennis Gardeck was, he's a core 4 special teamer and also a solid Sam linebacker. And Colin Saunders was just traded for. So, they really weren't getting rid of him. But I just thought it was interesting that 3 of those 5 guys are gone. So it didn't surprise me, but it surprised a few people because, again, Daniel Thomas was a core 4 special teamer and really good guy and is now in a Detroit Lion. But yeah, I just thought it was a good time for a victory lap, even though it's not a surprise for me.
Well,
My biggest surprise was probably Antonio Johnson making the roster.
Oh yeah, that is a surprise. Since you in their victory lap, and let's keep that cardio going. Who is first to rotate in for Trayvon Walker and Josh Hines-Allen? And so Travis can start to breathe heavily as his victory lap cardio keeps going. I think it's Smoot. I think Smoot's the 3rd guy in line.
And I think it's Agba. I still think it's Agba.
Yes, matter of fact, I mean, hey, I'll throw it out there in the comments. Radius agrees with you that it's Agba, but either way, Smoot's name's still coming out my mouth,
So they both produce well in the preseason. So that makes it hard because Smoot gets more eyes because Smoot's a former Jaguar. Right. So I get that. Like if you're here and everyone's kind of rooting for you with your previous injury, in your career in 2022. So, yeah, we're going to notice him. But I don't think people are really looking at Agba, and he hasn't had as many sacks, obviously, and pressures in the preseason. So, but just looking at skill set, Smoot is a lot closer to Trevon, and Agba's a lot closer to Allen for me.
So because of the versatility on Walker's side versus the pinning your ears back and attacking the QB on Allen's side.
And I can see, and I can see them wanting to maybe move Trevon inside every so often. And I think it's going to be, we're talking small, minor differences at the end of the day. I just think overall, if you get into an obvious passing situation early on, you're probably going to go with Agba first. If I'm wrong, I'm wrong. Like I don't think it's such a big difference overall, but I just think that's probably where I'd lean.
I think the opponent or even the flow of the game itself dictates that more than the player. I think you're 100% right on that. So the answer to your question, Greg, is who is first to rotate? Yes.
Sure. At the end of the day, that's all that matters. But like, it doesn't make as much of a difference as all these guys. To Liam Cohen's original point, he stated in his first post practice presser after the 53-man roster was announced, that hey, we have all these guys who are options. We have a lot more versatility as far as the ends, a lot bigger guys, so we're able to kind of move these guys inside and out a lot more. And that's all of them, that whether it's Walker, whether it's Smoot, whether it's Agba, even Allen on occasion, which is why you saw them doing so many stunts in week 2 of the preseason.
His arms are so long. He's a great change up to slide him in. I absolutely love how they do that.
Yeah, so they can take the impact and they can take the work and they can get these guys in great positions like they do Hutchinson on putting these freaking dominant monsters on guards. It's just a great situation, while the other guys can still they can still set the edges pretty well. Like Dwan Smoot is not bad at that. Agba's not bad at that. So they're still fine overall. That's your NASCAR package either way. So it's going to be a close overall in the snap share, in my opinion, at least. And wrapping this bad boy up, because actually we are 40 minutes. Sometimes a shot. This is breezed by, man.
This is what the divers do. They make it fun in the preseason. We've had this conversation. Hey, go ahead.
I know. I always worry about whether or not something's going to, like, whether or not we have enough to, to last the podcast. And then I'm like, dang, it was an hour. There was an hour in the freaking podcast. How did that happen? Y'all divers. Y'all just asking all the right questions, making all the right comments. Keep it up, man. Preseason doesn't matter on the Jaguars Discord. Says,
I love it. First of all, hold on. Can we throw some love at that name in the Discord? I like it. What a handle. Go ahead, Travis.
Which position group are you most uncertain about how they'll perform this season? Not necessarily the one that you think will be the worst, just the one with the widest range of outcomes. And I thought this was a fascinating question, and I want to let you go first.
Yeah, it really is, because for me, I know you're assuming that I'm going to say the offensive line. Not that that's a bad answer. That's just not where I'm going.
Okay.
I would bring you back to our actual position ranking episode that we did with friend of the show, Jamal St. Cyr, News 4 Jags.
Okay.
I had one position group at the bottom. Y'all had them over the middle. And I never understood why. By the way, one of the reasons why I had them at the bottom is now gone. So I reserve the right to change my mind. And I, of course, refer to the linebackers. Other than volatile, right? We're going to put him in a corner. He's the most underrated defensive player in the NFL, I could argue. Notice I didn't say the AFC South. Notice I didn't say the AFC. I said the league, folks. Okay. And then around him is a lot of question marks, right? Devin Lloyd, we don't know. Jack Kaiser is a rookie. We think he looks great, but we don't know anything yet. And just around there is a lot of question marking. Ventrell Miller, he looks great at times. Still question marks everywhere.
Osher thinks he's going to start.
I mean,
over Devin Lloyd.
What just happened? Okay. So if that doesn't paint uncertainty, Travis Z. Holmes, please help me with what does.
It's uncertain, but then there's the question, because the original question is not who's going to be the worst, who just has the widest range of outcomes.
I agree.
So is there a range of outcomes where the linebacker core is the best position group on the team?
Maybe.
You think so? Like, I don't know. Like, I
mean, when you ask the question, my response is a non-zero chance that everybody plays out of their damn mind. Think previous to the arrival of the hockey rotation lineup,
right?
Where the Jags DBs opened constantly leading in turnovers. They overplayed what is it? What would you put there? They're
overplayed the hand.
Not overplayed their hand.
Outkicked the coverage.
Yeah, they outkicked the coverage with what we expected for sure, but they still had that high point where at times they were the best group on the field on defense, right?
Okay.
I think that's on the table for the linebackers to achieve that. Do I think it happens? No, but it's within 2 standard deviations of happening, thus possible, right? I went full nerd on that.
Yeah. Okay, no, that's fair. Like, I understand you and your SAT words. I got you. I'm an ACT guy, but I understand. So overall, this is fun because I'm in agreement with you that the offensive line is right smack dab there, and the fact that there are so many names, so many groups that I can name in this conversation should give at least Jaguar fans a dose of realization, like a splash of water in the face to say, all right, cool. This might not be perfect early in the season. You just need to know that. Right. Offensive line is on that list. I don't disagree with you that linebackers on that list. I don't disagree with you that safety's on that list. We have a lot of lists, like a lot of rooms that can be on this list.
Though, see, and when you say uncertain, I'm talking about how wide the pendulum can swing. The linebackers could be the worst or the best. There's no universe where the safeties could be the best or the O-line could be the best on their side of the ball. There is no way.
I don't agree with that. I thought the safety group could still be above average because of the defensive. Because
you
we set that on the tiers. Yeah. I've set that on a few of the buys now. Like, I thought the safety room would actually be not. I think the safety group would be solid if the defensive line could be solid, because folks ain't paying attention to the all 22 on game day. They're figuring out, hey, was the ball thrown in that area? I guess the safety play was great, or I guess the corner play was great. That's how this works. Like, they get credit just for the ball not being thrown there because they're generally in the right area. So Zenith says safety. All right, cool. We got Radius is saying O-line because they have like 8 new members, and I'm thinking, well, yeah, but there's a world where the Jaguars O-line ended up looking better because the running game looks better, because they did the same thing with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. Like, they went from being 31st in the league in rushing to 6th in the league in rushing, I believe, like yards before contact. So I think it's reasonable to kind of say these things, but also at the same time, I'm going to go with, I hate to do this. I hate to do it. But it's the God honest truth. It's got to be quarterback for me. And the problem as it currently stands is we have Nick Mullins as a backup quarterback when we previously had Mac Jones as a backup quarterback. And we have a quarterback who's been injured 2 years straight. And we know
significant time, by the way.
I'm looking at this room, not Trevor Lawrence directly, but also I can even look at Trevor and say, all right, Trevor's going to be solid. I think Trevor's good, and I think Trevor's going to be fine. I do question if Trevor's going to be healthy. And that's not something I've seen. That's just something I know what it is. I know what this is. And I really wish they would have brought in a better backup quarterback option, because having someone akin to Mac Jones as that backup quarterback for a guy who's been injured as long as he's been injured is problematic. And that's a really wide range of outcomes also, because I've seen what Mac Jones is putting on this field, and that ain't a strong arm, bro. It's just not. So all of a sudden, Trevor Lawrence is already Bitcoin. I'm sorry, I'm being honest. He is very high and very low. His lows are low, and his highs are high. And because of that, I'm like, already that's volatile enough where I want to make sure I have a stable backup in case something happens to keep this thing from falling off the rails. But then to have a backup quarterback who I also don't believe in, that makes me nervous, bro. I ain't gonna lie to you. The offensive line, I think they'll be fine if they go with injuries, and injuries are just a natural part of football, the standard deviation, as you kind of want to say. Offensive line is fine. Running back room is fine. Linebacker room is fine. Even the D line and the edge room is still generally fine if they lose guys. And the one room I'm pointing at is Trevor. I hope you don't get hurt. I mean, I don't want it to be Nick Mullins because that's rough. I ain't want it to be Mac Jones. That's also rough. But I thought they would have brought in a better option there, and that makes me worry, at least. Then quarterback being injured. Jeez. Yeah, so overall, that's a big thing for me. And not to mention also, and that's before we even get into the conversation that we've had for much of this all season, where folks are just like, it's a make it or break it season for Trevor Lawrence. This has to be the thing for Trevor. This has to be the season for Trevor, because if he's just below average and having these turnover issues and still figuring out his footwork stuff, getting it right every time throughout the season, where does this team land? Like, that's been the conversation that most of Duval has been having this offseason. Like we have, and that's discounting the supporting cast. So from that perspective, I'm like, all right, I feel y'all. Like, I get you. So Trevor doesn't have to be God in this offense to lift up everything.
Correct.
But as long as he is not turning the ball over, they'll be fine. But if he is turning the ball over, even just Trevor Lawrence himself has a wide range of outcomes where he can end up being below average to literally top 3 in the league. And I could see that realistically. And that's not like hype or anything. Like, that's saying like Trevor could have an MVP type season, or Trevor could be, bottom 10 in the league.
It's a wide pendulum swing. No, I get you. And I'll put it this way. I don't see a world where he's bottom 10 in the league, but it would be certain mistakes pointed out. Like, if we're going to give Calvin Ridley a hard time for, dropping touchdowns, we got to give that same crucial moment criticism of Trevor as well. And
That's
really
fair.
Quickly too, Radius points out almost every team in the NFL is screwed without their QB1, so it's kind of a moot point to me. Here's where I disagree with that particular thing and agree with what Travis is saying. Tyler Huntley, as far as we knew, and I know we've talked about it on the show, is still available. The opportunity to improve the quarterback room, at least talent-wise, exists. Now, I know scheme, knowing the offense,
yes.
all of that's important. That's the reason they don't have him. And whether I think Mullins is a net positive compared to Mac Jones is also irrelevant. The pendulum still swings wider. Do I think Pro Bowl? Yeah, great point. Pro Bowler Huntley, sure. I think, and you're probably going to disagree with this, I think if it's late in the season that Trevor has to miss a couple games against some of these weaker opponents, I think Mullins is more than enough to get wins in that part and keep them in the AFC South race if it comes to that.
He's showing you that?
The team around me has shown that they can lift him up. If Mac Jones can win football games, I think Nick Mullins can do that and maybe get one more touchdown that Jones couldn't.
Okay. If you believe it, hey, God bless you.
You hear me with the minute lift. I'm not saying we're climbing mountains here. I'm just saying, okay, Mac, you're here. Now, Nate, step on the molehill. Now he's taller. You know what I mean?
All right, cool. I'm with you. I'm with you overall. But Zenith asked a very, very important question. Are you saying we can win a game when Trevor has a lower than 90 passer rating? Because that was the Doug Peterson tenure in a nutshell.
87 wins a game.
Yeah. 87 had to win a game because if Trevor Lawrence had less than 87, the Jaguars were going to lose because that's how quarterback centric they were. And this team is supposed to be a team with multiple questions on multiple position groups, but nevertheless, more of a team that's not solely dependent on Trevor Lawrence playing well. We'll see if that materializes.
And the other side of that, Zenith, too, I think the answer is yes, if not just Trevor's rating, but if Campanelli and that defense is a high enough improvement, then the hockey rotation regime.
And we will get into that on Wednesday's Duval Dive for PJ Brown's question, because that was yours, sir. And we will answer it.
Yeah, he is all in on the transpose 31-13 score. He's been saying that for the past 2 weeks. Keep that energy, PJ. And you know what? If you're in there on the Duval Dive Live, where Travis will be in place from Everbank Stadium, take that victory lap. We'll honor you live on the show.
Thanks. So while you guys are listening, please click that like button. If you're if you are in the sound of my voice, if you're listening on the podcast, go to the YouTube and like it also. If you're listening on the YouTube, go to the podcast. Well, later, go to the podcast and and click that rate and review us. Like, help us out, bro. Like, we appreciate you guys for giving us all this content. Again, we only plan for this bad boy to go 20 minutes, and somehow or another, we are at 51 minutes and still talking to you because y'all come with the great questions.
Great. Period.
Come with the great comments, just great people. Well, you know what? I ain't gonna tell that lie. You seem to be good people, but I need to know you. I need to meet you first.
You're good comments.
In the stadium.
You're good fans. You're good divers. Man, I don't care how you treat your mama. You treat us good. There you go. How about that?
There you go. We at the bank week 1, and maybe we'll try to swing by PJ. Come talk to us, bro. But yeah, good time, man. Like it was a really good time. I really appreciate you guys like stopping in and helping us keep this thing going for a lot longer than we scheduled for. And if you have a great comment, hit us up on the socials. Hit us up on the Jaguars, on the Duval Dive TikTok, on the Duval Dive X, on YouTube, etc. And we will have a whole podcast related to what you want to talk about, because that's kind of why we're here. Talk about what you're talking about. So click that like button, click that subscribe button, and please find us on whatever social you frequent. And more importantly, you can find me on X, on Blue Sky, Travis D. Holmes. You can find my writing covering the Jacksonville Jaguars at bitcatcountry.com. And yeah, Duval, keep it locked in. Where can you be found, sir?
An honor, joy, and privilege to do this with all of you. Of course, I am Kyle Nash, the student of the game. You can find me on Twitter, Instagram, Threads, and Blue Sky at BSOTG. Find me on Facebook as a student of the game. Check out my writings for your Jacksonville Jaguars at Fans First Sports Network. And actually, I say Fans First Sports Network, but their football section is known as Pro Football Insider. So make sure you check that out. It's a good time all the way. Little facelift on the website is all. That's all it is. Panthers losing receivers daily. Hey, Radius, when I do my keys to the game on Fans First Sports Network, you better bet that's going to come up. And that appendix surgery is no joke, Zenith. There's an offensive line.
They keep going, these comments, man. But we got to go. Josh Hines-Allen breaking the record in week 1. Now, that's probably facts, but yeah.
We'll be looking for that, too. That'll certainly be good news for PJ Brown to keep the Panthers at that 13-point total, right? But then, of course, check out my work, Bolt Blitz Uncut. They'll have stuff going on today as well as Tuesday. And Booga Peters tells me we have some shorts coming, so make sure you check that out, Bolt Blitz Uncut YouTube channel for if you're curious about any Charger stuff. And, of course, the Black and Gold Banneret Night Shift podcast, the work I do there, as well, covering UCF football and basketball when that time of season comes. I also do Orlando Magic for Fans for the Sports Network, but that's a next month problem. For now, we're getting closer and closer to NFL Week 1 with every passing day. So for my personal champion, Travis C. Holmes, and all of you in the comments, keeping it real and keeping it going. Till next time, everyone. Class dismiss.